be a currency bot. So let's set it up as a bot, add slash commands, and also add the ability for us to get a balance from the user. Otherwise, it's not much of a currency bot, is it? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do to get started is correct an error of the last two REPLs. We're going to take your REPL, we're going to use Command F or Control F if you're on Windows. We're going to replace the word client with the word bot. Once you've done that everywhere, we just need to go in on line 7 where you did discord.bot, and we're going to change that around. That instead needs to be commands.bot with a capital B. Now you'll see straight away that errors, and that's because we haven't actually brought in the commands library yet, and that's the bit that allows us to interpret command events, not just any random message. So up at the top, we're going to use from discord.ext import commands, and when we run that, we get an error again, and this is because we've changed the way the bot works. We've gone from a client, which is a very general purpose thing, to a specific bot. And a bot is everything a client is with a bit more on top. But the main thing is that it understands commands. And of course, a command has to have a specific character in front of it. Now I'm going to do slash commands because I like being cool, but you could do whatever character you wanted to represent the command that we're going to type into our Discord window. All we need to do is add to the brackets here. Add a comma after intents because we're adding something else. And I'm going to set my command prefix to / so that my slash is going to work. Now notice when I run this, I'm getting a slightly different message popping up because I'm actually running a bot instead of a client now. And once logged in, I can say hello and the messages still work from before. So we dealt with events, let's deal with a command. Somewhere between where you've defined your bot and where you've started your bot up, we're going to add a new event. This is going to be @bot.command, and this is what will happen when our bot receives a command. Remember, a command is any message preceded with a /. Now the way we define different commands is really straightforward. We use async and def and then the name of the command. Now in brackets this time I'm going to bring in ctx. ctx is basically the current thing that I'm sending, which is a bit more complicated than a message because it could be anything. And in this case, it's going to be a command. This just gives us a bit more flexibility over a message or over a command than we might get elsewhere. So CTX is basically saying the command that I received to start this, I can take it apart and do something with it. And all we're going to do to get started is use ctx.reply to send a message back to the user to tell them their balance. It's an await command again because we tell Discord to do it and we get on with our jobs and just assume it's going to happen. Now you can just reply with normal text, but that looks a bit naff to me. So what I like to do when I'm doing something like this is wrap it in backticks. Now please note, this is not single quotes, double quotes, it is a backtick. It's on your keyboard and it's looking a bit like this. When you wrap something in backticks, it's basically saying that it's a code block. So it formats it in a monospace font and maintains all the indents and the spaces that we might want. I'm misusing this here because I'm misusing it to just make our balance look a bit nicer. But you'll notice that it's not really working consistently. And that is because sometimes our Discord bot will get confused between what's a message and what's a command. And actually everything gets processed by our message function. So we're just going to add one more thing to the bottom of that. In our onMessage function at the bottom, we're going to tell it to await bot.process command message, just in case it's picked up by the wrong part of the program. And this passes it on to the handler for commands, which is pretty cool actually. So now our balance is working, but it's not actually picking anything up from the database. Why don't you go and spend some time now setting up your command bot, make the changes and make sure it can receive a command of /balance. Okay, next up, we're going to actually set up the database to store information. Now, one of the things we need to do is when we set that user up for the first time, instead of it being equal to none, let's make it equal to a dictionary which stores a bunch of data. So I'm going to change that line so it's a dictionary where we have a purse, which is going to be the money on our person, which as a default of about $5,000 seems good to me. We're also going to deal with the bank, which is money that is stored and isn't possible to be robbed, in our game at least. I'm going to set that as $10,000 as a default. And I'm going to add a list of items, which I can make none, or I can make a blank list if I want to. It's up to you how you do that. Now, of course, we've already set up our user accounts, so we'll need to go and wipe the database very quickly. That's nice and easy to do. We can just do del db and delete the entire database, or we can loop through and delete the keys. Run that once, and then stop it, remove that code, and run it again. You can say hello now, or if you set it up in the nicer way, based on the challenge from last lesson, any single message to do, and that will add your user to the database and set up their basics. When you use /balance now, we can go and customize that code to actually read the value. So what I'm going to do in my reply, I'm going to adjust that to be an F string, and I'm going to add in balance, and I'm going to pull in the purse value from the database. Now please remember that the author ID needs to be turned into a string for this to work, otherwise it'll start crashing. And you can see there that's pulling in the amount from the database perfectly. Now I'm going to add some customization to the formatting. I can make things italic by putting them in asterisks. I can make them bold by adding 2. But what I'm going to do is add those backticks a little bit so that the amounts can be in little boxes, which looks quite good. I'm then going to go in and I'm going to add a new line character, and I'm going to add the bank amount as well. And that's good enough for the meantime. It's pulling the actual data from the database. Now, there's no way of changing that data just yet, but that'll be the next video. Why don't you go and set up your database so that it stores the information about the balance, the amount of items, and the bank balance of the user. Okay, for your challenge, I need to show you one little thing. So stay tuned, but your challenge is simple. You're going to extend this balance command so that I can do /balance space and then a username to see the balance of a different user. Now there's something you need to think about here. You need to check that that user actually has an account in the database, otherwise it'll crash. And maybe a good error message like this user doesn't have an account with us would be something worth adding. But if the user does have a record in the database, we're going to display their information. But you need to know how to take a second argument that's optional inside a command. And actually, it's quite straightforward. What I'm going to do here in our balance command is I'm going to add a second argument to it. So after the CTX, I'm going to put a comma, and I'm going to put a variable in there called user. Now I want this user to be a specific type. So I'm going to use a colon to define that. And the type I want it to be is a discord.member. That means that the second argument must be a Discord username, or it's not going to work. Now, if I left it like this, you'd always have to put in a Discord username. So that means asking for my own balance would be /balance and then at my username, which seems like a lot of effort. To combat this, we're just going to add equals none. Now what this means is if I don't provide a username, the variable user will be equal to none. And I can use a simple if statement to check for that and run down different code pathways. This should get you started, but if you're stuck at all with this, please have a look at the example code, the solution. Don't forget to publish it to our community and use the hashtag DiscordBotsOnReplit to get eyes on it on social media. Now we've got balances, let's actually set it up with some functionality. In the next lesson, you're going to be able to bank the money in your purse, withdraw the money in your purse, and even buy items. That was a bit dramatic, wasn't it?